Again, we're the Geological Sciences Department at Cal State Fullerton. We are the largest geoscience department within the CSU system. However, that doesn't mean that if you were to become a student in our department that you would be lost, because we're relatively small. So we have roughly around 170 majors. We have two different degree pathways. They are the Bachelor of Science in Geology, as well as the Bachelor of Arts in Earth Science. We've got about 80 Bachelors of Science Geology students and about 60 BA Earth Science students. We also have a small graduate program as well as a few minors. Our geology degree is primarily designed for getting our students jobs in the real world, or also for going on to graduate school as well. And it's a very sort of traditional geology program. I'll talk about that more in a little bit. The BA in Earth Science is primarily, the degree itself is very malleable. So it's sort of very adaptable. So depending on what you want to do, if you want to go into teaching science, if you want to go into the environmental field, lab work, those are all sort of pathways for the BA in Earth Science. And so our geology degree is kind of more traditional. Our earth science degree is a bit more adaptable. So I just want to talk a little bit about our department. And so exploration is a very big part of our department. So when we're not in COVID-19, we have lots of field trips. So this is Yosemite National Park right here. And we like to get our students out in the field to see rocks in their natural environment, as we like to call it. And so pretty much all of our majors classes have field trips with them, where you get to go out and work on the rocks and play on the rocks and collect real world data that you can then bring back and do projects with. One of the nice things about us being a relatively small major, so I didn't mention it before, but our class sizes are all typically around 20 to 30 for our majors classes. And so that means that our students all typically kind of go through in single groups within individual years. And so our students all get to know each other really, really well. They get to know the professors really well. One of the things that I think is a little bit unique about geology is that the students are all largely on a first name basis with their professors. So my students don't really call me Dr. Woods. They tend to call me Adam, and that's fine with me, unless they're not comfortable with it. But I think it's kind of cool. It's one of the things that I think makes geology very, very unique in the sciences and just in general in college. Field science is a big part of geology. And so, as I mentioned, we like to get out. We like to see our rocks in their natural environment. Professor Diane Clemens-Knott is there. You can see she has a big giant hammer to crack rocks open with, which is always, very much fun. But again, all of our classes typically have a field component where you get to go out and see rocks in the field. But that doesn't mean we don't do lab work as well. So in this case, we have two students that are prepping what I think is a whalebone, but we have other sorts of lab sciences as well. We have more chemistry-focused lab science, more physics-focused lab science. And so we know that not all of our students are necessarily going to be wanting to get out into the field all the time, and they may sort of prefer to work in a lab sort of environment as well. And so this is something that we do. We like to think of ourselves as a very well-rounded department where we're in the field and we're also in the lab as well. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier is that if you decide to come to our department and you try to get your, not try, but you become a geology major, our geology major has a required undergraduate thesis. And so what that means is that starting in the second semester of your junior year, you work with one of our professors on an original research project. So you typically figure out which professor that you're interested in working with. We usually have an event in the fall called Meet the Professors. And so our juniors usually all go to this meeting where each professor takes about 5 minutes and talks about their research and what they do. And so based on that, you can choose which professor's research interests you, and you get to work on a research project with them. Now, don't panic and think, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to come up with a research project at that point? Usually the professors kind of talk to you about what you're interested in, where you want to go, what you want to do with your career, or where you think you might want to go. And then based on that, they help you put together a research project. And so this is something that really makes our department unique, not only in Cal State Fullerton, amongst the other sciences in NSM, but it also makes us really pretty unique in the Cal State system as well. So I can think of maybe one or two other departments that have a required undergraduate thesis for their geology majors. A lot of our students get jobs within the environmental science field. I'll talk a little bit more about jobs later, but I would say that our students are kind of split when they graduate. If they don't go to graduate school and they go into industry, about half of them get jobs in environmental science. And so what that means is helping to clean up the environment, looking for pollution, tracking it, figuring out how to remediate it. And then about the other half typically goes into what's called engineering geology. And so what that is our students go and they help to build things. So when you're building a building, you want to make sure that you're building it in a place where it's not going to fall down the hill, or if it has the potential for that, you can figure out ways to make the hillside stable so that doesn't happen. So those are our two big employers. I would say about 60% of our geology majors go into the environmental or engineering geology fields, and about 40% go on to graduate school to get a master's or a PhD. For our earth science majors, our BA, I don't really have exact numbers, but a lot of them go into teaching, or they also can go into the environmental field as well. But typically with an earth science degree, that means you're likely going to be more lab-based as opposed to being field-based. One of the great things about us being a small department is people tend to make lifelong friendships in our department. I'm still friends with people that I went to college with back in the late 80s and early 90s, so it's been a while now. But a lot of our alumni tend to keep in touch with each other and are friends pretty much forever. And it's kind of cool. We host an annual alumni night in October for our people who have graduated, and they all get together and reminisce about when they were at the school and going out in the field and doing different things. And so it's really kind of cool to see that. And again, it's sort of the really nice advantage of being in a major that's relatively small and the department that's relatively small. Again, I'm the department chairperson. My name is Dr. Adam Woods. My email address and my phone number are there. And I'm just going to pause for a second in case you're writing that down. And then our undergraduate advisor is Dr. Nicole Benuso. She is a person that you can ask questions about concerning our major, any sort of, I would say, sort of technical questions about going through, or if you have units transferring over. She's sort of our expert on that. And so I wanted to kind of walk you through our department, but I also want to talk a little bit about our major as well. And so let me find that really quickly. And of course, I'm not finding it. Give me just a second here. I will say one thing about our major, and that's that our students are very good at getting employed. So one thing that you may be aware of at the moment is that, you know, with the pandemic and things, a lot of places have sort of cut back on hiring, but we've really seen a huge uptick over the last, I would say, month or two of people emailing us and asking us, you know, to send majors their way. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about our two majors, and I'll start with let me start with the BS in geology. And so these are the requirements for the geology degree. And it kind of breaks down into two different groups of classes that you would have to take as a major. Here's our geology classes as well. And so we have a sequence of classes that you take, starting with intro geology and geology lab, and then earth history. And then from there, there's actually a very sort of concrete pathway that you take. You take our earth materials class in the fall. It's only offered in the fall. Then our igneous and metamorphic petrology class the following spring. Then structural geology the following fall. And then sedimentology and stratigraphy the following spring, so sedimentary rocks. The other classes sort of are sprinkled in there as you go through, but it's very important that when you are ready that you take the earth materials class to get that sequence of classes started. So you can see with our majors classes in geology, we kind of hit all the sort of important topics. Earth materials is basically minerals, igneous and metamorphic rocks, sedimentary rocks. We have a class in hydrology, which mostly is looking at water. We have a class in structural geology, which is looking at how rocks are bent and folded or broken as they're tectonically affected. We have a field techniques class that you take relatively early on that gets you out in the field for several weekends during the course of a semester. And that way, we usually have our students take this class kind of early so they can start to see rocks early on. So it's not just this abstract thing that's out there. As I mentioned, we have an undergraduate thesis. And typically that goes over the course of 3 semesters. It's worth 3 units, but you take 1 unit per semester. So you take that during, typically you're starting in the spring of your junior year and then the following fall and spring of your senior year. And what will come out of that is a typically short 25 to 30 page undergraduate thesis. Other classes, you have to take a quantitative elective. So that could be in geochemistry, geophysics, or engineering geology. I mentioned engineering geology as one of our big employers. And then other electives. So we have a variety of elective geology classes that you can take, everything from oceanography to paleontology to groundwater geology classes. Those are all there, and you need 9 units of those. The other thing that you need to do, our other sort of second pathway that you're kind of taking as you're taking your geology core courses are our related fields classes. And so this gives you a strong, broad background in math and the other sciences. And so in mathematics, our students either take calculus 1 and 2, that's 150A, 150B, or they take a short course in calculus the first semester and then statistics the second semester. That's 130 and 338. Our students take a year of chemistry, a year of physics, and then 1 biology class. So either biology 101 or 152, which I think is ecology, if I remember my numbers correctly. And so all of this adds up in our units here to 78 units, and then you have 39 units of general electives as well. So that's our geology major. It's pretty structured in terms of how you go about getting the degree. The BA in earth science is a lot more adaptable, as I mentioned. So you do have to take a series of geology and kind of geology and geology related classes. So again, intro geology, earth history, and then we have our students take oceanography. It is an earth science class, so we want to make sure that you're getting all of the different parts of the earth system. Again, hydrology. Then we have our students take either the field tech class like the geology majors do, or the earth science majors can take a class on data collection and analysis. And if you're interested in lab work, this is sort of probably the class that you want to take. And then they take either earth science communication or environmental geology their last semester. Sorry, I got distracted by something. These classes are basically designed again to sort of be very adaptable. And so you do have to take more electives in geology classes or earth science classes. So another 12 units here. In terms of the related fields, you take 1 course each in biology, chemistry, geography, math, and physics. And then you need an extra 8 units of some of those. And then we have something that is a little bit interesting. We have what are called undesignated units. So this is where you can sort of really adapt the major to what you want to do. So if you want to become a teacher, for example, you would take a variety of classes over in the College of Education. So that would help you get your teaching credential. Or if you were interested in science journalism, for example, you could take classes in journalism. So again, this major is something that we design so that you can make it what you want it to be. One thing I did forget to mention, oh, I'm sorry. One thing with the earth science major is that there's no thesis like there is with the geology major. You can do an undergraduate thesis if you want as an earth science major, but you don't have to. Just want to go back really quickly with the geology major. I forgot to mention one class here, and that is geology field camp right here. That is the very last class that you take as a geology major. And what that class does is it's taught in the summer. Typically it's taught in late May into late June. So it's about a month long. And our students go to a remote location. In this case, it's up in Owens Valley, and they spend a month there and they work on a variety of projects where they're mapping the geology, they're mapping the units that are there, and then interpreting them and writing reports. And so the idea with this class is it kind of helps you bring together all of your geology so that you can apply it to specific projects. I just have a few more things I want to say about the geology major. I mentioned that there's camaraderie, and so our students are all pretty close to each other. Because it's a small major, everybody sort of knows each other. It's a little bit like a small town that way. But we do have what's called our Geology Club, and our Geology Club is run by our students, and they're very active. They like to plan out lots of different events. So they'll typically do a camping trip or two per semester. When they're doing the rock show in Quartzsite, a lot of times they'll go to Quartzsite that weekend so students can go and collect rocks or buy rocks. They do rock hounding trips. They do bowling nights at the bowling alley on campus. And then they also arrange study sessions for our different classes. So if your mineralogy class is having a big exam coming up, they'll organize a study session so people can get together and study and be prepared for it. I did want to say a little bit more about jobs. So as I mentioned, about maybe 30% of our majors go on to graduate school, or 40% of our majors go on to graduate school, but others do go into the geology or environmental fields as well. And as I mentioned before, they are hiring quite a bit right now. And so largely all of our majors who want to get jobs wind up getting jobs, and they're very solid, good paying jobs. That you can get pretty much straight out of college, which with just a bachelor's degree. And so I think it's important that if you're going to be majoring in something in college, that you're able to get a job in it when all is said and done. And so that's something that, again, we're very good at getting our majors employed. A lot of them even start working before they even finish their degree. Otherwise, the only other thing I wanted to mention is that if you're interested in geology or earth science, please check out our webpage, as well as Cal State Fullerton. I encourage you to check out the Experience Cal State Fullerton website. And that is my presentation. Thank you.